Look at my backyard. Nip flower. I'm addicted to buying houseplants. It's the violet. I'll probably kill it. One time I killed a cactus. I didn't water it enough. That can be the question of the day. Have you ever kept a plant alive? Happy rainy Friday. Today we're going to talk about research as a conversation. Research as a conversation. I keep saying that. I haven't explained what I mean. The reason I start out Portfolio 2 this way by talking about how we look at research and a mindset to have about research is because when I came to college, I didn't really know anything about it. When I thought about researching and looking up, peer-reviewed essays and studies and things, I saw these papers as sort of existing in this ether of JSTOR as these very isolated, very individual things. As far as I was concerned, they only sourced and quoted other papers because my teacher said that that was something that you had to do. And I thought it was just like a rule that existed. It wasn't until maybe my second semester at UVM that I had a professor explain it in class. And what they said was to think of these researchers in a field as all attending one cocktail party where they want to talk about this one thing. In our case, that was an English class. Maybe it's a cocktail party about Frankenstein. And everyone that's ever published a paper on Frankenstein is sitting at this cocktail party. They've got their little martini glasses. They've got their clutch purses because the fancier the event, the smaller the purse. And they're talking to each other about their ideas about Frankenstein and what they think it means. And they're all sort of mingling together. And just like any party, that party is going to split off into smaller conversations. So maybe if there's, 40 people in the room, there's a bunch of conversations with like 5 to 6 people, and they all kind of have the same ideas, and they're gossiping about the other groups. And at these parties, there's certain phrases or words that everybody uses. Just like different groups of people have different slang and different vernacular. And there's a hierarchy at the parties, where the people who have been going for a long time are up at the top. And the, new kids are down at the bottom, and, well, not quite at the bottom, because then under them there's the waiters and the waitresses handing out the cocktails. These databases where we're going to be searching for peer-reviewed research are like a record of what was said at all of these cocktail parties. So when you read a researched paper, you want to stop thinking about it as something that's in isolation or just floating out in cyberspace. You want to think about it as something that's in conversation with all the other papers that are floating about there, something that went to this cocktail party and had something to say there. So for homework, I had you read Are Humans Monogamous or Polygamous by David Engber. I think that's how you say his name. I'm just going to call him David. And what David did is he threw a themed cocktail party. The theme was, Are Humans Monogamous or Polygamous? And he invited psychologists and archaeologists and paleontologists, and he had them talk about it. Normally when I teach this essay, the first question that I ask is, are humans monogamous or polygamous? And I say, you read the paper, you should be able to answer me. And eventually somebody raises their hand and they say that he doesn't decide at the end of the paper. At the end of the essay, David doesn't really answer the question that he raised in the beginning, which can be kind of infuriating. That tends to annoy people, because if you sit down and you read this paper, you kind of want to be rewarded at the end with the answer, are humans monogamous or polygamous? And he doesn't tell you, but what he does do is he brings all of these voices together into one place. And unfortunately, neither and both kind of is the correct answer. It depends on what kind of experts you're listening to and what people you're looking at. I think there'd be a lot of arguing at David's party. And with different genres of research papers, because they're not all the same, you're going to have different roles at this party. You might be in one of these little subgroups, or maybe you're trying to sort of bridge the gap between two different ones. One thing you never want to do at an imaginary cocktail party or at a real party is go knowing only one person and then be glued to them the whole night. For the writing that we're doing in our class, I want you to think of yourself in sort of the same position as David, where he's sending out these invitations and he's getting people together. He's getting in the same room and he might be stirring the pot a little, but he's not really inserting himself into the action. He's not starting drama. He's not really forming his own opinions yet and bringing them into the group. He's sort of chilling in the back, hanging out. Kind of reminds me of those, murder mysteries where the weird old guy with a connection to like 10 different people from all over the world invites them over for dinner, and then he's not there and the lights go out and the lights go back on and he's dead on the table. I don't want you dead on the table. But it's kind of like that. After you watch this video, what I want you to do is go back through this list that you made of the different sources that David used and think about what it would be like if they were all in a party together. Maybe not a cocktail party because nobody goes to those anymore. Maybe you can imagine them at a house party or on a Zoom call or a panel at a conference. Or maybe they're in a class together and they're having a class debate. Whatever kind of weird scenario you imagine these people in, the important thing is to picture them like they're talking to each other and not like they're screaming into the void. Because learning to write about research isn't just about, using the right words and getting the right search terms and looking in the right places. It's about having the right mindset. And it's about understanding how these things work and what the rest of the world is. Normally when I teach this class in person, I have them get into groups and do a storyboard of, what scenario they can imagine this sort of conversation happening in, where people are talking about are humans monogamous or polygamous. And again, a storyboard is like a comic. It's something that they use when they're planning like a TV show or a skit or a movie or something. It's, pictures and speech bubbles and descriptions of what's happening underneath. But I think that assigning group projects during remote or online anything is a form of cruel and unusual punishment, so I'm not doing that to you. But I will still have you do a storyboard about your own research at the end of the project to help remind you that this is all happening in a conversation and to bridge the gap between this project where all of your sources stay separate and the next project where we sort of compile them into one essay. And I want you to keep this research as a conversation business in mind when you do your next assignment. For our class on Monday, you're going to read My Little Brother on Drugs. It's an essay available under course materials on Blackboard. And your journal for Monday is to think about what questions she's asking or answering in her essay. And what are the big questions and what are the small questions? There's a bunch of them. So for example, in Are Humans Monogamous or Polygamous? The big question is, are humans monogamous or polygamous? It's not rocket science, and I'm not trying to trick you. I guess that's all that I have to say for today. Don't sing. I guess that's all that I have to say for today. Remember to answer the question of the day, which is, have you ever kept a plant alive? Your homework for Monday is to read My Little Brother on Drugs and write a journal about the questions that the author is asking and answering. And I will see you on Monday.